History's most dangerous katana, Nobunaga's execution blade, Heshikiri Hasebe. 1569. Azuchi Castle. A tea servant drops a ceramic cup, splashing scalding tea across the warlord's honored guests. Oda Nobunaga stands, draws his blade. The servant runs. What happens next will prove why they called him the Demon King of the Sixth Heaven and show that in Nobunaga's Japan there was nowhere safe to hide. But what the blade did that day defied physics, fear, and reason itself. This is Heshikiri Hasebe, one of history's most dangerous katana. The blade's origin. The Swordsmith. To understand what happened in that castle, we need to understand the weapon itself. 2.5 centuries before that spilled tea, around 1312, master swordsmith Hasebe Kunishige worked his forge during Japan's Nanbakucho period. 2 imperial courts were at war. Quality steel meant the difference between victory and death. Kunishige wasn't just another swordsmith. He was one of the legendary 10 students of Masamune, the godfather of Japanese sword-making. While other students learned to create beautiful hamon patterns or perfect curves, Kunishige inherited something different, something darker. His gift was raw, devastating cutting power. His blades didn't slice, they drove through targets with crushing force. This wasn't art, this was engineering for maximum destruction. And yet, centuries later, one of his blades would be accused of doing something impossible. The blade's construction. The sword itself measures 64.8 centimeters, shorter than many katana, but perfectly balanced for close-quarters execution. Traditional differential hardening created a diamond-hard edge, backed by a flexible spine. But Kunishige's secret was in the geometry, the angle of the edge, the distribution of weight. This blade was built to concentrate massive force into a single point. The legendary technique it would become famous for, Heshikiri, the pressure cut, was already written into its steel. It just needed the right owner to reveal its true nature. What it did next would defy both physics and fear itself, an act so impossible it turned into legend. Nobunaga's rise. By the 1560s, the blade belonged to Oda Nobunaga. If you want to understand why a tea servant would run in terror from a dropped cup, you need to understand who Nobunaga was. He burned temples with thousands inside. He crucified his enemies. He ordered the massacre of 20,000 men, women, and children at Nagashima. His own allies called him the Demon King of the Sixth Heaven, a title he himself embraced. At his castle in Azuchi, every servant, every samurai, every visitor knew the rule, perfection or failure, and failure meant death. There was no middle ground, no second chances, no mercy. But even his most loyal retainers whispered about his blade, the one that seemed to strike harder than physics should allow. In 1569, a man named Kanai was about to learn exactly what that meant. The execution, the offense. Kanai wasn't just any servant. He was a chabozu, a tea monk responsible for serving the daimyo in the elaborate tea ceremonies that defined samurai culture. His head was shaved like a Buddhist monk's. His movements were supposed to be practiced, precise, perfect. But on this day, something went wrong. The historical records disagree on details. Some say he dropped a cup. Others say he served the tea in the wrong order of precedence. What we know is this: boiling tea splashed across important guests. In that moment, in front of witnesses, Kanai had humiliated the Demon King. And yet the most shocking part isn't what happened in that room. It's what Nobunaga did next. Nobunaga's rage was instant, absolute, and very, very public. The flight. Kanai ran. Through Azuchi Castle's corridors, past other servants who pressed themselves against walls. Nobody interfered with Nobunaga's justice. Nobody dared. Desperate, searching for any refuge, Kanai found a storage cupboard, heavy construction, thick cypress wood panels. He dove inside, pulled the door shut. In the darkness, his own breathing seemed too loud. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. Then footsteps, slow, deliberate, getting closer. They stopped right outside the cupboard. Silence. For one impossible moment, hope. Maybe Nobunaga would order him dragged out. Maybe there would be a chance to beg, to apologize, But nobody expected what came next. Nobunaga knew exactly where Kanai was hiding. Everyone knew, but the Demon King didn't call for guards, didn't order the cupboard opened. He drew the Hasebe blade. Witnesses describe what happened next with a kind of horrified awe. Nobunaga took a specific stance, feet planted, blade raised directly overhead. The technique has a name: Heshikiri, the pressure cut. Maximum force, straight down. He didn't swing the blade. He drove it down, through the cupboard's top panel, through Kanai's body, through the cupboard floor, into the tatami mat beneath. One strike, one sound, wood splintering, echoing through the hall. The cupboard fell apart, its structural integrity destroyed. Kanai was dead before he could scream, before he could even understand what was happening. Nobunaga resheathed the blade and walked away. He didn't need to say anything. The message was clear. The naming. From that day forward, the blade had a new name: Heshikiri Hasebe, the pressure cutter. The Hasebe, forged blade that crushes through. Every servant who witnessed it remembered. Every samurai who heard about it understood. This wasn't just a name, it was a warning, a promise. This blade doesn't just cut flesh. It cuts through whatever stands between Nobunaga and his version of justice. Wood, armor, bone, nothing could protect you. Word spread like wildfire throughout feudal Japan. The Demon King had a blade that would stop at nothing regardless of where you try to hide. There was no escape. The psychological warfare was perfect. How do you fight someone when even solid wood can't protect you? And while the story sounds almost impossible, a blade cleaving through solid wood and bone in one stroke, Nobunaga wanted it that way. The exaggeration served him. The legend served the narrative that Nobunaga's power made his will inevitable. It reinforced the larger myth he cultivated, that his will alone could bend the world, that resistance to his vision wasn't just dangerous, it was futile. After Nobunaga's death. 13 years later, in 1582, the Demon King's reign ended in flames. At Honnoji Temple in Kyoto, his own general Akechi Mitsuhide turned traitor. The temple was surrounded. This time there was no escape for Nobunaga himself. But what became of the blade that symbolized his unstoppable will? Rather than allow himself to be captured, Nobunaga chose his own fate, seppuku, ritual suicide. But here's what history often forgets. He died knowing his enemies still feared him. The man who made Japan tremble chose his own death rather than give his enemies the satisfaction. His swords, including Heshikiri Hasebe, became spoils of war. But who would dare to own the Demon King's execution blade? The Kuroda Clan. The blade's journey to the Kuroda family is soaked in irony. Nobunaga had falsely accused Kuroda Yoshitaka of treason, took his son Nagamasa hostage, ordered the boy's execution. When the truth emerged, Yoshitaka was innocent. Nobunaga faced a problem. How do you apologize for nearly murdering someone's child? His solution was breathtaking in its audacity. He gave them Heshikiri Hasebe. But was it a gift or a curse? Even in apology, Nobunaga wielded fear as propaganda. Giving away the execution blade wasn't generosity. It was a reminder of what happened to those who stood against him. Think about that gift. Here is the blade that shows what I do to those who displease me. Be grateful you're innocent. The Kuroda clan accepted it. What choice did they have? But they understood the message within the message. This blade was both compensation and threat, trophy and warning. They kept it for 400 years, never letting anyone forget what it represented. But how could a sword born of fear survive into an era of peace? The blade survives. Centuries passed. The blade was shortened to 64.8 centimeters, standard practice for ceremonial wear. In 1953, it received gold inlaid attribution from Honami Kotoku, Japan's most respected sword appraiser. But even as its edge dulled, its story only grew sharper. His authentication wasn't just about the blade's craftsmanship, it was about its story. This wasn't valuable despite its dark history. It was valuable because of it. Every scratch, every subtle wear mark was earned through use, through that one legendary strike that defined it forever. Legacy and location, national treasure status. Today, Heshikiri Hasebe is designated a national treasure of Japan. It rests behind bulletproof glass in the Fukuoka City Museum, the same region the Kuroda Clan once ruled. Thousands visit every year. They come from around the world, drawn not by its beauty, though it is beautiful, but by its story and legendary status. They stand before the glass and try to imagine that moment, the servant cowering in darkness, the blade descending, the impossible physics of cutting through solid wooden flesh in a single strike. But the real question is, did it truly happen that way? Or has the legend become stronger than the steel itself? Museum guides tell the story carefully, historically. But everyone who hears it understands. This is what power looked like in feudal Japan. What it represents. Heshikiri Hasebe isn't just a sword. It's proof that weapons earn their legends through action, not intention. Kunishige forged a blade capable of the pressure cut, but it took Nobunaga to reveal what that really meant. And yet, centuries later, we still can't decide, was this history or propaganda perfected? The story of Heshikiri Hasebe endures because it worked. It made Nobunaga's violence feel like destiny, not choice. One strike, one moment, one servant who thought wood could protect him from the Demon King's justice. 700 years later, we still tell this story. We still shudder at it. We still can't quite believe it. Yet the blade is right there, behind glass, silently testifying that it happened. This is what separates a tool from a legend. Not the quality of the steel, not the skill of the smith, but the willingness to use it in a way that nobody can forget. The lesson. Nobunaga wanted everyone to remember what his blade could do. Mission accomplished. 7 centuries later, we're still talking about it, still warning each other, still understanding that in his world there truly was nowhere safe to hide. True power isn't just owning a legendary weapon, it's using it in a way that echoes down through history. We hope you enjoyed this first installment in our new series, History's Most Dangerous Katana. Stay tuned for future episodes. Coming up, we'll feature a blade so perfect, samurai committed fraud just to claim they owned it. Like, subscribe, and join the newsletter for more real samurai history and epic sword content.